People don't change because they are being instructed to change. They change because they want to change, because they decide to change, because they're committed internally to change. Well, how do you get people to commit internally? There's someone that you're very close to and you want them to change. The answer is, don't tell them anything. Don't expect them to change. Just be the person that you want them to be. And they will automatically reflect it. Because if you have a close relationship with someone, a close working relationship with someone, and there is a codependency, an interdependency between two people, then automatically when they see you acting in a certain way, then they will act in a certain way. Sometimes I try and get my kids always to say, please, thank you. So rather than telling them and drilling into them that they should always say, please, I just always say, please, Mommy, could you pass me the lemonade? Shalom Aleich, thank you so much. The only thing I can do is model it. And then they will automatically follow. Why will they follow? Because they're connected. Because we are one family. Because we're interconnected. We will model one another's behavior. Because we are essentially bonded at the hip. We're connected. We're really one. I want to be accepted unconditionally. I want Hashem to accept me unconditionally. I want to be liked. Do you know how I'm going to be liked? I don't deserve to be liked. But if I like others, independent of what they did or who they are or what they're about, then automatically that behavior that I am living will be reflected to me. Will be reflected to me. I want Hashem to accept me unconditionally. There's a guy, I've said this before, there's a guy who comes around every single day without fail in my shtibel, during my morning davening, and he's on some heavy medication, clearly. I mean, he's not well. An older divorced fellow, very troubled soul. And he comes around every day with his hand out. And he doesn't have any social finesse whatsoever. So it could be in the middle. I could be in the middle of Ashrei. I could be in the middle of Shema. Shema Ashrei, I think he's figured that one out. But it could be any time. You know. And he's the kind of guy who now I know the government, he's got SSI, he's being taken care of, he's in someone's house. He sits outside the shul all day and he chain smokes. He goes through probably 4 packs a day. I know he's always smelling of cigarettes. His clothes are all dirty. It's like one of those fellows that just, never. Baruch Hashem, people are nice to him. He would be institutionalized, but people are nice to him, and he kind of has made his second home in the shul. Reminds me of another story. He's kind of one of those guys. Every day he's coming for his handout. And I think to myself, I can rationalize, this guy doesn't need my money. And he certainly doesn't act in a way that expresses any appreciation whatsoever. He's got his hand out. And every day, I kind of dig into my pocket somewhere, scrape out $1 and give him the $1. And I'm thinking to myself, like, Hashem, you're giving me every day what I need. I smell. I chain smoke in my own way. I do all kinds of things. I'm drugged with my Yetzer Hara. I'm doing all kinds of things that are, I don't really deserve it. You're giving me, I'm giving him. I'm modeling your behavior. And when I model Hashem's behavior, Hashem's going to model his behavior to me. And Baruch Hashem, I don't lack. We want to live in the manner that we want to be treated. And we don't want to, and very often our seichel tells us, no, don't do that. Stick up for yourself. Don't be taken for a ride. This is crazy. What are you giving that guy money for? This is like nuts. My father-in-law told me, my Zaydi lived in the East Side. A very special person. Lived in the same apartment, actually. The same apartment building, 455 FDR Drive as Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. And there was a fellow, he was a Belzer Chassid, very special person. There was a fellow in the shul that kind of made his place in the shul. I don't know if he was a Holocaust survivor. He was a person nobody ever knew even where he came from. He was one of those people that was kind of a parasite type personality, but an old religious Jew. And I guess after davening there was always a little cake or schnapps on the table. I guess he lived on that, and he slept in the ladies' gallery. He's kind of one of those guys. We don't find too many of them anymore. In the olden days they were very prevalent. And once he got pneumonia, he was in hospital, and after hospital, nobody, he had to convalesce somewhere. And he decided his place is, because my grandfather was such a good person, my grandfather and my grandmother used to come there for meals on Shabbos, and they tolerated him. He decided he's staying at my grandparents'. Anyway, it was, I think, a 2-bedroom apartment, or a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't know what it was. It was very small. And he parked himself in my grandparents' apartment for about 2 months. And my father-in-law told me, he said he once came into his father's apartment, and this Yid, Rabbi Yitzchak, he needed to sleep there. He was there for Shabbos or whatever, and he was a little inconvenienced by the guy. The guy got a little irritated with him. And the guy says to him, sits up on the bed, and he says to him, whose apartment, in Yiddish, the real zaftige Yiddish, he said, and whose apartment do you think it is? In other words, this is my place. Don't disturb me. This is my little corner on the street corner. I might have rolled up my sleeping bag in front of your corporate office building, but this is not your building. This is mine. Stop disturbing me. And remember, all his senses were like, what? You what? You decided to park yourself here for 2 months? Do you know what saints my parents are? And then he said, you know what? This is the way his perception, this is his reality. Stop. It's okay. This is what he needs to feel, poor old man. Fine. And when he got over that, and he felt like that, it's wonderful. And we have a sense of proprietorship, and we're always thinking instinctively for ourselves first. Once we get over the thinking for ourselves and we can think for others, then we actually feel the real connection. And then Hashem is really connected to us. Hashem tzilcha, Hashem is your shadow. The more we are thinking for ourselves, the more we're really distant from our divine source, from our soul, from our spark of essence. And the more we're capable of stepping out and being altruistic and giving expression to the soul and the conscience, the more we are connected to our divine source, and the more we're one with Him. And the more we think for Him and not for ourselves, the more we emulate Him. Now think about this. This is amazing. On Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, the high point of Yom Kippur, we're screaming, the whole shul is screaming, Hashem, Hashem, Keil, Rachum, V'chanun, Erech HaPayim, Rav Chesed V'emes. And everybody's got their hands out, and they're saying it, like everybody, high-pitched fervor. What's it all about? Why is it so important? The answer is, we're committing ourselves to emulate Hashem. We say Hashem, Hashem. Hashem before we sin, Rashi tells us. Hashem after we sin. Hashem is exactly the same before we sinned and after we sinned. After we sinned, you'd think, What did you do? No, there is cause and consequence. That's built in. There is punishment. But there's no personal, there's only love. It's only in order to correct us. It's the exact same Hashem before we sinned as after we sinned. You know, sometimes I love my kids. I asked my kid, please, he's doing nothing the whole day. It's summer, camp didn't yet start. Sing a little for your supper. Could you please take out the lawnmower? You like it. We bought a new lawnmower that actually pulls itself along. It's easy. Could you please just do the grass? Once, twice, 3 times. Like in the afternoon already, you've been sitting around playing games. Can you please do the grass? You kind of just... Nothing happens the whole day. Get a little disappointed. Hashem is the exact same before we sinned and after we sinned. Before we realize our mission, our purpose for which we were created, and after. That's mind-blowing. What we're screaming, what we're saying and declaring to Hashem is, we will emulate you. Just like you are Rachum, we're going to be Rachum. Just like you're Chanan, we're going to be Chanan. That's how we morph and bond and become one with Hashem. We're new people. We're not going to act reflexively, instinctively in our own interests. We're one with you. Reminded me of something else for a moment, but it's gone. Another story. But it's a very important concept. We mirror. Hashem will mirror us. When we're committed to this and we're living in altruistic zone, then Hashem will suspend a judgment on us and is totally bonded with us and is one with us. We will experience and feel it. It's not just the reality that we're always Hashem's children, we're always His firstborn, and the door is always open. But there's an actual... Hashem will mirror us. The way we are is the way He is. And if we're Racham and Chanan, then He will be Racham and Chanan to us. Because we're mirroring Him. We're one with Him. And now I remember what I thought of. Because this is a thought that totally, absolutely is... This is amazing. After Adam and Chava sinned, Chava enticed Adam at the beginning of creation to eat from the tree of knowledge, and it was like she pulled the plug on the lights in the world. The whole world was plunged into darkness. The whole world became a different world. They were no longer angelic. They were no longer eternal. They were going to be punished. It was inevitable. They now became an Eruv of Tov and Ra. And you'd think after Chava gave Adam the fruit from the tree of knowledge, whatever it was, you'd think that God punished them, and Hashem says to Adam, from now on you're going to have to go to work. It's going to be so tough. You're going to have to go out there, and the thorns and thistles are going to be in your way. The whole world is going to be a mixture of good and evil, and you're always going to be fighting the evil, and it's always going to be automatically springing up towards you and against you. It's going to be so difficult. You'd think he'd be a little frustrated with his wife. Chava. Honey, why did you do that? It's all your fault. And the Torah tells us that Vayikra ha'adam shem ishtei Chava. Immediately after God punishes him and tells him with the sweat of your brow you're going to eat bread and you're going to die because you're taken from dust and you're going to go back to the dust. You're essentially a material creature now. It says immediately afterwards, Vayikra ha'adam shem ishtei Chava. He calls her name Chava. Why Chava? Ki hi oisa em kol choy. Because she's the mother of all living beings. Why did he just call her name then Chava? And what is this? She's the mother of all living creatures. Of course she's the mother of all living creatures. It's nothing to do with her. Hashem made her first. He just created her. She happens to be the first mother, so obviously everybody's going to be descended from her. Nothing she actually worked for, nothing she deserves. It's innate to her. The answer is, Adam realized after the eating from the tree of knowledge that his natural, reflexive, instinctive person says, I need to blame someone. Who's at fault? It's her. She made me eat. He even said it to Hashem. He realized, no, he has to do tshuva. I don't blame anybody. I look inwards. I need to see good. I look at my wife, and instead of blaming her, I'm going to call her Chava. I'm going to seek out qualities. She has a quality. What's a quality? I better respect her. She's the mother of the whole world. Wow! And immediately afterwards, the Torah tells us, V'ha'adam yada es Chava ishte, and Adam knew Chava, his wife. And she became pregnant, and she gave birth. We know it really means intimacy. He was together with her. But the Torah uses the word yada, to know. Because intimacy is knowledge. It's only by knowing someone that one is really connected, that it's meaningful, the connection. Only by understanding the other person's mind. He was determined, I'm not going to think in my mind. My mind says, punch her. No, I'm not going to think in my mind. I'm going to think in her mind. He suspended the I and put himself in her shoes. That was his teshuvah. It's fascinating. And therefore life came into the world. Our job is to emulate the divine, to be godly, and not to think about ourselves, to think about the other, to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. And then Hashem automatically puts himself in our shoes. When we occupy another's space, when we get into another person's space, then we become part of them, we become part of Hashem. Let's go back to the Tefillin story. I'm going to share with you something very important. We'll get to that. Everything we spoke about bears relevance on the Tefillin. As we said yesterday, we wear Tefillin, and Hashem wears Tefillin. And what's written in Hashem's Tefillin? Who is like my nation, O Israel? One nation, the Go Echad, the one nation, the nation that brings unity to the world. And what's written in our Tefillin? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. We're thinking of God, and God's thinking of us. And this is all embodied and reflected in Tefillin. I want to share with you something fascinating. The Gemara tells us in Shabbos Daf Mem Tes, the Gemara tells us the famous story of Elisha Baal Knofayim. Ever heard of Elisha Baal Knofayim? Elisha Baal Knofayim, the Gemara tells us that the Romans decreed that the Jews are not allowed to keep any mitzvahs or study Torah, and they outlawed the wearing tefillin. And Elisha was a zealot. He was a great man, and he wore tefillin publicly. And he said, I don't care. I'm going to, my tefillin are, V'ro kol ami ha'oretz ki shem Hashem nikra alech, and he wore his tefillin. And the Gemara tells us there was a castor echad, there was a sergeant, a Roman sergeant who saw him publicly wearing his tefillin in the street, and he spotted him, came running after him, going to arrest him, and he knew that he was going to be crucified, get the death penalty. So he kept wearing his tefillin, the Gemara says. Kivin shehigia elov, as he came close to him, Elisha took off the tefillin and put them in his hand. And the sergeant came up to him, caught up to him, and he said, "What's in your hand?" And he said, "In my hand is kanfei Yonah, the wings of a dove. Look." And he opened up his hands, and sure enough, in his hands were the wings of a dove. And that was a miracle. And from then on, he was called Elisha Baal Knofayim. This holy man was called Elisha the Baal Knofayim. I wondered about this Gemara. Now he could have said, "You know what's in my hand? Abracadabra, a rabbit." I don't know what he could have said. He could have said anything. But took the wings of a dove. And any idea why he said the wings of a dove are in my hand? The Torah, the Jewish people, have knafayim. We have wings. Tefillin give us wings. Havan Yira wings. I explain to you, we are down here, where our body, everything in this world has the natural material gravitational pull associated with it. We think Newton discovered the theory of gravity. Sages talk about gravity. Everything pulls down to where it came from. It's built into the world. From dust you were taken, and to dust you will return. Everything will naturally pull back to its source. The body pulls to its physical source. The soul pulls upwards like a flame. Ner Elokim Nishmas Adam. And thus we have the fascinating phenomena which cannot be explained in scientific theories. It's just there that a living person weighs less than a dead person. The Gemara uses an expression, Chai nose es atzmoi. A dead person has about 15 to 20% more weight than a living person. Why? Because the soul is pulling up. It's pulling up to its source. We're all pulled up to the heavenly throne. The more we disconnect from the body and we connect to the soul, the more we are pulled upwards to our celestial source. And the more in this world we're connected to the soul, and we fly, and we disconnect from our material source that says, I need to be understood, stop it, get out my way, I've got to win this, and so on and so forth, all the emanations of the body. The more we can connect to the soul, the more we have wings, the more that it expresses our reality, our eternal reality in the next world. But we're experiencing it in this world. Olamcha tira b'chayecha. Your next world you can actually experience and see in this world. How do we see it? Through Torah and mitzvahs. Torah is a living entity. It gives us wings. It allows us to lift up. The challenge that we have, and this is our biggest problem when we bring up our children, when we live ourselves, is when Judaism is onerous, when rituals and mitzvahs become dogmatic, and they're just things that we kind of got to do, get it over with, check it off the list. Let's hit off a mincha, guys. Come on, we've got 10 guys. Let's go. Okay, we'll do a heicha kedusha. Come on, 5 minutes. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. We just lost it. I'm not saying it has no value, obviously. There's a certain consistency. At least we did it, but we missed it. Because mitzvahs lift us up. I love to say that story of the airplane story. You must have heard it. But there was a king. I said of this story. There was a king who had a big country, very, very beautiful big country, and he decided he's going to, on the 10th anniversary of his kingdomship, he wants to tour the whole kingdom, get to know the far-flung provinces, know his subjects, know all the various regions, and he'll come back to the palace. He spent a year on a royal tour, and he went all around to distant places. And from a very far-flung corner of his kingdom, a very mountainous region, he heard there's a very big village on the top of a mountain, and the royal retinue made their way up the mountain. They sent ahead messengers that the king is coming, and the whole village was so excited, just unbelievable. Very, very fine people in the village, and they prepared a banquet and a royal reception. All the kids were standing on the little road that led up to the village on the top of the mountain. They had flags and banners, and they were jumping up and down. The king came, and he was so taken aback by this effusive reception and the love that was demonstrated towards him and the respect. Everybody was bowing. And he started to converse with the people in the village. He realized these are very, very, very special people. Such fine qualities, such good character, such good people. And he said, wow, this is amazing. These people are up here in the top of this mountain here, living their lives for centuries. They had their own little vegetable plots and their own little trees, and they had their own little bamboo huts. He said, if these people, would be able to just teach the rest of the world etiquette and human respect and their values, and they would be able to take from the rest of the world the advances, the technology, they'd be able to take, some of the industrial science that the rest of the world has. It would be a great shidduch. This would be fantastic. Anyway, he leaves the village and he thanks everybody profusely. He says, I'm going to send you a gift. And a team of engineers comes a couple of weeks later, and on the other side of the mountain, right round the side from the village, they flattened out the mountain and they built a runway and they built a little airport. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, they put it down, all the rubble, the stones, and a little plane comes down, a beautiful plane, a gleaming, nice, brand new plane. The king sent them a plane so that they could take off from the top of the mountain, they could land, and they could, get to know people in the whole kingdom. They could fly around and they could send delegations. Delegations could come to them and they can interact and cross-pollinate with the rest of the world. Everybody would benefit. A great gift. That's only a king can send you an airport and a plane, Anyway, a few years later, the king decided once again, he wants to go on this tour, this royal tour. And he comes up this mountain in this region. He finally, after about 8 months on the royal tour, he came to this far-flung province and he's climbing up the mountain. And again, the whole town came out there. Mama's so excited. The king is coming, and they're waving and they're excited. Everybody's just euphoric. The king is here. And he's so taken aback. These people are so special. And they make him a banquet. And after the banquet, they want to show him the airport that was built by his engineers and the gift, and they want to thank him. Take him around the mountain, and there's a big sign as you come onto this flat land, this runway, the big sign there, Airplane Park. And he comes there and he sees they'd built some slides and swings, and the kids used the airplane was one big beautiful toy. The kids were sitting in the cockpit and they're flying coming down the emergency chutes. And they're the big slides, and they're playing with all the buttons. It's fantastic. And they're like coming out of the luggage area, and they put toys, all kinds of toys in the luggage area. The kids were crazy over it. They were so happy. And the king looked at them aghast. He said, you really think this is just a toy? This thing flies! It flies! You don't get it! It's the same with Judaism, with Torah, with mitzvahs. Hashem wants us to soar like a bird. The Jewish people are called a Yonah. Knesset Yisrael are called a Yonah. We're compared to the dove. The dove, when Noach, you see the first time we're introduced to the dove, the Yonah has a very beautiful quality and characteristic. It's faithful. It's faithful to its mate. The Orev came when the Orev was sent out. The raven, it's interesting. My wife, we put out bread on the porch, and the different birds come and enjoy the bread. When the blue jays come, they're the worst. They just dominate. They kick away all the other birds. They take the bread. They're mean, really mean. Like, whoa. Then there are other birds tweet around. When they're not there, they come, they peck, they give a little bit, you take, I'll take. You see, it's a whole different world. The Orev only thinks for itself. It only thinks for itself. It thinks immediately when Yonah sent out first the Orev to see if the land was dry, the Orev came right back. It wouldn't circle, it wouldn't go out. It was circling the ark because it suspected that Noach was going to take his mate for himself. Not a good character. Then he sends out the Yonah, and the Yonah circles for 7 days and has no place to rest, so it comes back. It comes back. And then it sends it out again. It comes back with an alazayas. He wants to send a message to Yonah. He wants to tell him, look, I'm I'm connecting to Hashem. Rather that my food comes from God and it's as bitter as an olive leaf, then it comes from you, from the hands of flesh and blood. And then he sends him out again and he doesn't come back. He's a free bird. He wants to connect to his divine source. Doesn't want to be dependent on Basar V'Dam. We Jewish people are like the Yonah. We fly. We want to fly. We want to be one with Hashem. We're faithful to him. Yonah has wonderful qualities. And the Yonah has wings. Tefillin give us wings. When we put on tefillin, we could put them on like most of us do. Just come to shul, take it out the box, check the mirror, We come in, it's already Baruch Shama, it's already, like maybe Baruch Hu, we got to get it on, get on the show, get the show on the road. We do it. The mitzvah of tefillin gives us wings. It's so deep. It's so meaningful. We're bonding with Hashem. We're emulating Hashem. Hashem wears tefillin. We wear tefillin. We want to be one with Hashem. We want to understand the deeper meaning. When we understand the deeper meaning, we're really connecting. Tefillin is an incredible mitzvah. Why is God asking us to take this animal skin and form these square boxes which look so strange and black, and we put in them the Shema and it's all concealed? It looks so arcane. When we're in a public place, you're in the airport and you have to put on your tefillin, you kind of I hope nobody sees. I got to daven, In the olden days, before they had cell phones, so we used to have to daven mincha. We went to the telephone booth, we lift up the receiver and we're davening Shemona Esrei. Nobody needs to know we're davening Shemona Esrei, Tefillin is the source of pride. V'ro kol amei ha'oretz ki shem Hashem nikra olecha v'yoru mimeka. Tefillin is who we are. There's this picture from the Holocaust, which is one of the most moving pictures. It was taken by the German archivists. But in the Warsaw ghetto, there's one Jew standing there, wrapped in talis and tefillin. They hadn't yet stripped him of his beard, and he's standing there amidst a lot of corpses that have been shot or killed or lying on the ground, and he's praying, standing staunch. And there are German soldiers standing around, ridiculing him, like laughing, looking at him. Amazing picture. If you haven't seen it, it's one of the most famous Holocaust pictures. They may be laughing, they may be smirking, but he's really laughing. He's standing staunch and erect. He's connected to his source. He who laughs last laughs longest. Such a powerful picture. Anyway, time is up. So tomorrow, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the four corners of the tefillin, about why this provides a little bit more of an intimate relationship with Hashem. Why this Elisha understood when he put on tefillin, he merited that divine miracle precisely because all he wanted was to have wings like a Yonah. And when he put on tefillin, it was real tefillin. It gave him wings. Tefillin can give us wings. Mitzvahs can give us wings. Mitzvah comes from the word savza, to be one. Because when we are performing God's will, Hashem's will, independent of whether it interests us or it doesn't interest us, whether it makes sense to us or whether it doesn't make sense to us, we want to do your will. We want to declare your unity in the world, even though it's a world of so much disparity and so much conflict and so much four corners, and we can't see around the corner, and there's so much that doesn't make sense. We don't understand why Tzadik V'Rali Rasha V'Tovlei, but we're connected to that kesher, to that knot. We're one with you. We're tied with you. Hashem is tied with us. And Hashem says, Mi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. We get wings. We lift it up. outside the stratosphere, outside of seichel, outside of the eye and all the elements that pull us down, the finite, limited elements that govern our natural existence. It's like a rocket. Once it breaks the gravitational pull of this world, it just goes. Tefillin gives us the ability to break the gravitational pull. Let's examine it, let's explore it. Let's see if we can delve a little bit more into it, and we will try a little bit tomorrow. Looking forward. Good Shabbos, everybody.
Good Shabbos. Good Shabbos.
All the best.